One of the key verses in Scripture on the topic of worship is Jeremiah 32:39, which says, "I will give them one heart and one purpose to worship me forever." Every time the Lord gives us a command, He's revealing His heart. So in this verse, He clearly asks for one thing, our worship. You see, most kings ask for service, but the King of Kings desires our love. So in this verse, He starts by saying, "I will give." This heart of worship comes from the Lord. And yet we receive this heart of worship as we encounter Him. And as we encounter Him, that leads us into more worship. So worship is a never-ending cycle of encountering Him, which leads to worship, which leads to more encounter. And we go deeper and deeper into His heart. Then He says, "I will give them." The word "them" signifies a corporate expression. The heart of worship here is not promised to an individual, but to a people, to a corporate setting. And yet the word "them" is plural, because it must happen within each individual person before it can happen in a corporate setting. Where could we go in worship if when we came together, the Lord knew He could trust every single person? How would He manifest His glory? Then He says, "I will give them one heart." There really is only one heart, and I'm speaking figuratively here. There's only one heart, and it's the heart of Jesus. And through worship, we have the privilege of entering into His heart and becoming one with Him. And that's why He says, "Abide in me, and I in you." What is the Christian life if it isn't union with Christ? What is the purpose of the bridal language of Scripture if it isn't to become one with the Beloved? This one heart is the heart of Jesus, and through worship, we can enter into His heart and become one with Him. Then He says, "I will give them one heart and one purpose." When we enter into the heart of Jesus, we find that only one thing is needed. Outside His heart, many things are needed. But when we've entered into His heart, there's only one thing that's needed, and that's to love Him. The Song of Solomon says, "The King has brought me into His chambers." One translation says, "The King has brought me into His bedroom." And there, only one thing is needed, to behold Him and to love Him. And the verse continues, "I will give them one heart and one purpose, to worship." In the New Testament, the word for worship is proskuneo. It comes from two Greek words, meaning facing and to kiss. So the literal meaning of the word worship is to face another and kiss. The Song of Solomon says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth." The verse continues, "to worship me." The kiss of worship takes us into union with the one we love. God's request for worship is not selfish. Rather, it is a giving of ourselves to the only one who is supreme holiness, purity, and truth. The highest good is to be one with the one who is good. And the verse ends, "to worship me forever." In heaven, there will be no need to write books or preach sermons or pray for healing or work or raise a family. But in heaven, we will always worship. So as we worship here, we're entering into what we will do for all of eternity, which is to worship Jesus forever. So worship truly is heaven on earth. And that's why God says, "I will give them one heart and one purpose, to worship me forever."